Hey everyone, welcome to episode 4 of Experience This Travel Show. And what is Experience This Travel Show? Well, it's Bruce Rosard, myself, and Christian Watts getting together to talk about all things experiences, having chats with a number of different people in the business. There'll be opportunities for down the road for people to jump in and join, and we're just really happy to be engaged in this project, and so far so good. So today we are kicking off with two panelists, or not panelists, guests. Yes, that's the word. Dan Christian from Dharma, CMO of Dharma, and Janelle Visser, who's editor of Arival. Maybe you guys should actually start off by just introducing yourselves. I think that might be the best point of action here. So Janelle, you want to jump in?
Sure. Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Janelle Visser. I'm the editor for Arival. I've been with Arival since August. And before that, I've been in tourism since about 2017, working mainly as a tour guide and tour guide trainer. So happy to be here.
Cool. Dan?
Thanks, Janelle. Great to be here as well. Thanks, Lori. Like many of you, I'm a travel industry veteran. I see Christian there with his Lonely Planet guidebooks in behind him, which I worked at Lonely Planet in Australia for a few years, moved back to Canada and worked at G Adventures and did a lot of work with OTAs. And then for the last 10 years, I've been with the Travel Corporation globally, which is a $2 billion, 40 brand global business. And so I've seen many of you in person at events, but I transitioned at the end of the pandemic to Dharma, where I see a very bright future for passion-based tours. And so essentially, rather than modernizing existing travel brands, my focus with Dharma as a co-founder and CMO is to create new travel brands like Looking FC, like Spirited Stories, which is based on people's passions, not on the destination. So the destination really becomes secondary to what you want to do when you're there. And so definitely very relevant to experiences, and keen to be here and join you guys. So thank you.
I do want to hear more during these next few minutes about the passion economy. I don't know who created that term, how involved you and your company have been in that, but I think you did write an article about the passion economy, I'm pretty sure, Janelle. So hopefully we'll dig into that a little bit.
Yeah, and what I like is when I was looking at some of what Dharma's doing, as well as the articles that Janelle pointed out, there were quite a few instances where what Dharma seems to be doing really resonated with Arival readers. So I think this is going to be a really interesting conversation. So Janelle, maybe you could start out, talk a little bit about, you just hot off the press came out with an article yesterday, kind of highlighting the top or the most read articles on Arival this year. So what did you see as trends? Kind of what stood out to you?
Yeah, sure. So we thought it would be kind of a fun way to look back over the year, rather than just all of us saying, here's what we think, is looking at what people were actually reading on Arival's site. And so we dug in a little bit to the page views and the site stats, and the top 10 and really the top 20. A lot of the articles were about OTAs, Google Things to Do, and basically distribution and marketing through those channels mainly. So it was kind of interesting to see, we have a wide, like all kinds of different content on the site. These are the ones that are getting the most reads.
Wow. And so you just talked about distribution, and you sort of tied that together. I think when I was looking at it with the discovery and travel also.
Yeah.
That would be an interesting thing to hear about. So what did you have to say about the discovery and travel? How are people searching and booking and kind of what's your answer to that?
Well, we're seeing a lot more people. We're seeing people do it a little bit differently. And it also depends a little bit on the age range of the people who are looking. And so some of the research that has been put out recently by Arival with Douglas Quimby is talking about, that discovery process and that booking process and when the travelers book. And we're seeing a lot more people plan their trips around experiences. And so rather than, oh, I think I'm going to go to Iceland. I'm going to book a flight. I'm going to find a hotel. Okay, now what do I do in Iceland? People are like, I want to go to the hot springs in Iceland here and do this tour. Okay, now I have to book a flight. And so it's flipping a little bit how people are finding out what they want to do, which is exciting. But it makes it really important for distribution and for being seen online, because people are doing this online. And so they're looking and exploring and discovering, and then they're finding things, whether it's on, an actual tour company's website or an OTA like TripAdvisor or Get Your Guide. And so they're looking and doing that process a little bit differently than how it's maybe been done in the past.
So a couple things. One, Christian, he's back. He had some Zoom crash issues. He's back. That ties totally into what you're doing at Dharma, Dan, right? Where your brands are built around the idea that people want to do something, i.e. go to what we here in the States call a soccer game, or what most of the rest of the world calls a football game. And that's what they want to do. And so they plan their travel around it. So I want to interject that point here, and maybe you can speak to what Janelle was just talking about and what she's been discovering amongst the Arival readers and what she wrote about, et cetera, and how you see that.
Yeah, certainly. Thanks, Bruce. And that's certainly what attracted me to Dharma and the business model, because we're all very familiar with people who want to go to a destination, and having had extensive experience with this in that realm where you're trying to intercept people. They're looking for Italy, they're looking for France, and you're trying to see if they're looking for a guided tour. You can intercept people based on interest in a destination. You can obviously do that with search marketing. You can do that with good SEO. There's a number of ways you can intercept people that are putting their hands up and expressing an interest in travel. What's definitely more difficult, but is the more significant opportunity, is to be able to be focused on passion-based travel, which is what we've seen as a trend, meaning that people are more interested in what they're going to do when they're there, that experience. They're interested in yoga, meditation, wellness trips. They're interested in football. They're interested in wine and spirits. So they're traveling because there's a certain category of that they're interested in, and they want to travel with like-minded people. And so the opportunity then is not only to pursue passion-based travel, it's then to be surrounded by other people who love Man United or Liverpool. And those are people that are not currently in your network with your friends. That was one of the interesting things about Looking FC season 1 going into season 2, is the audience that we thought was going to book these trips really became 40 plus that have the time, they have the money, they have the time off is what I'm saying. They have the money, but what they don't have is people to travel with. So they're traveling for the love of the club or for the love of the game. They need a small group guided tour operator to really bring that experience to life. So I guess it's a combination of two things there, Bruce. There is the passion-based travel, which is what Dharma essentially is built around. And in the new year, we're launching a marketplace that brings together all of our talent trips and all of our original trips with a navigation bar, very similar to Airbnb, that's all based on passion points. And so that's really exciting next evolution for us. But right now, the businesses, the brands that we've created, like Looking FC or Spirited Stories, have been done in partnership with a celebrity or an influencer. So Looking FC has been built out with Eric Cantona. So it's not just us creating these trips, it's us creating these with a soccer football legend icon that has personally curated these itineraries. And then the same with Spirited Stories, working with Pernod Ricard and all of their consumer spirits brands to build out these trips based on the history of pastis in Marseille. So people are looking to travel deeper into these destinations. And one of the other trends that I certainly has come up from Douglas's work as well is duration. So people are definitely looking for smaller groups. That's an overwhelming trend. But our sweet spot has been 3 to 4 day itineraries. So giving in a $15 to $2,000 price point. So if you look at it, it's beyond a day tour. It's not quite a 7 to 14 day guided tour. It's in the sweet spot that OTAs and distribution partners have told us is the sweet spot for them to be able to sell a trip up to 5 days. And for $2,000, people are looking to take multiple trips like that over the course of the year. So
and they can sell those online, where they can't sell a 14-day itinerary online too easily. So just real quickly, sorry that I'm stealing your thunder here, Janelle, but we'll get back to you, I promise. experience-based trips, i.e., why would so many people travel to Qatar to go watch a football match or a soccer match, right? And how about that match? And you know, Christian, I know how big of a fan you are of the sport of soccer/football. What did you guys think of that match, and how did that fit in with what you're doing, Dan? So, Christian, I'll start with you. You've been watching soccer and World Cup soccer for decades. What'd you think?
Yeah, I mean, the match was the best ever. You know, the Qatar thing, I think like the majority of people in the world, it shouldn't have been there in the first place. It was obviously problematic for lots of reasons, but I'm happy that the competition itself was excellent. And the next one's going to be in the US. Well, the US and Canada and Mexico.
And Mexico, yeah.
3.5 years.
Yeah.
What do you think, Dan? Did you have a favorite going into that final or going into the knockout round?
Well, so of course, I had Canada, being based in Toronto and a true Canadian, born in the UK, raised in Canada, lived in Australia and the US, but Canada was my team. And man, that was the first time they came into the World, second time ever, first time in 40 years. And I was really hoping Canada was going to have the run that Morocco did, but instead we ended up in the same group with Morocco and Croatia, and you know how they fared. But I really wanted Messi and Argentina to win in that final. And that was the most gripping aspect for me, because when I see the type of trips that, and even the birthplace of Messi and his, like the South American football style, which I think a lot of people gravitated to, watching Brazil play, watching Argentina play, certainly watching Messi play. And that's where now that people have had that exposure, the stat actually was that they're in the US, as we know, Super Bowl attracts about 150 million viewers. The World Cup was 4 billion. So when you try and put the star level between a Messi and a Brady on a global scale, there's really no comparison, right? I mean, it's a fraction of the audience for NFL football. And you think about how global that business is. But the exciting for us now is we offer a trip to Buenos Aires. We've been running trips to Buenos Aires this year. We run things called derbies, where there's two local teams that compete against each other. And that creates the most incredible fan experience with these rivalries. And so we run these derbies like to Casablanca or Buenos Aires, and that Buenos Aires trip, going to the Bombonera and experience the Boca Juniors, like to take what you've now seen and experienced and gravitated to, the new fans have been created. Now it's the opportunity to get on a trip and go to, you know, the home of Messi, and to go to Argentina and experience football in their home country. And it's, so that's what we really hope, that there is a halo effect, and it's indications are there in terms of the traffic and the interest, but obviously we hope that it holds with more people looking to travel based on football culture.
Right.
Yeah.
Cool.
Good timing for growing that side of the business, right? That's that hopefully you'll get a bump from that for sure. I was actually just reading that the parade was so big that they actually had to help airlift the players out of the crowd because it was like crazy. They couldn't, you know, they couldn't control it, which I thought was so cool. So Janelle, just to jump back to you for a minute, I would love to hear from you in regards to online distribution, because I know online distribution was one of your kind of most read articles. So is there something specific that you can tell us about online distribution that you learned when you were writing that article?
Yeah, well, it wasn't just the top article. It was kind of the top category. So there's a few different articles on the list that are all related to distribution, to online travel agencies and different ways of getting stuff out there online. And so it was partly, okay, this is our top article, but it's also like, it's taking up a lot of space on the top 20 list. And yeah, so in terms of what I learned, one of the things that has been kind of on the radar for a little while is how people are even getting there in the first place. So we talked a little bit about discovery. How do they end up on, are they on Viator? Are they on the tour company website? Are they on Google? And it seems like people don't really care that much, like where they are, and they just want to find that experience and maybe, to get the most interesting sounding experience. And so while we've got, the OTA articles in the top spots, how people get there is important, and some of that other stuff that goes along with it, like the tour description pages and how people find those experiences, is also important. So vertical video we've talked about a lot in the last little while, and people aren't necessarily, especially younger people, younger travelers, aren't necessarily going to Google and then going onto a tour company website and looking at all the different tours. They're seeing a cool video or a beautiful photo, and they're like, I want to go there and do that. And then they figure out how to make that happen. So it's a little bit, things are shifting a little bit. And I think that's kind of interesting. There's this sense of like best practices, and then there's this sense of what's changing and what people are doing differently. And I find that really interesting. Anything where, things are changing and we have to, the industry adapts. I find that stuff really interesting. So I like to see how that's happening.
So I have a question for all of you. 5 out of the 10 top read stories on Arival.Travel this year were specifically about OTAs, with 2 more about Google things to do. You could argue that's 7 about distribution, digital distribution. Is that because that's what Arival covers and what we write about? Or is that where you, Janelle and Douglas and the team, are really paying attention to what people want you to write about? And I'd really rather you don't answer that first. We'll have the others answer, because we talk a lot at our events about OTAs. OTAs are always featured in a lot of ways. They only represent 10% of the overall bookings in our industry. So are we overstating OTAs in all of our coverage, but people are reading it? Or are we limiting the audience that might be more interested in other distribution channels in, things like Instagram, TikTok, and other social ways to discover travel in new ways now? Should we be looking more at, tour operators, like companies that Dan used to work for, as ways to distribute product in the experiences industry? So I'm really curious about that. Like, which came first, the articles or the readers?
Yeah, I think, Dan, you'd be a great one to maybe jump in here.
It's really interesting, because when you think about the audience for Arival and you think about OTAs, most of your constituents are looking for distribution. So it would make sense that they're looking to scale and grow their businesses, especially some of these truly wonderful small mom and pop operations that I've had the privilege to meet at the Arival conferences over the years, that they, this is their one big trip they're coming to, they're interested in scaling their business. And they're obviously waiting with bated breath to hear what Viator has to say or what Expedia has to say. So I think it's the audience and who they're gravitating to. So it makes sense to me that those would be the ones that are most heavily sought after. But I think the one thing that many of the constituents still in your audience knows, which is why they boo and jeer and they give some of those players a hard time at the conference, rightly so, for decisions they make about policies or cancellations. And they're like, that's one of the things I like the most, because you've got power users on those platforms that are putting their hands up to say, wait a second, I don't agree with this. This doesn't work for my business. So you've got these people that want to be on the platform. You've got people that are having success on the platform that are struggling with it. And then you've got people that are finding distribution opportunities elsewhere. So I would say the short answer to your question would be overstated, yes, but that would help to explain why. And I think what would actually be more enlightening for everyone, and you guys certainly started to do this in October in Vegas, where you put a heavy focus on TikTok. Because if we look at strategically what is the right approach for most of our travel brands, is that we want an omni-channel approach. We want to be able to sell through trade, we want to be able to sell direct, and we want to be able to empower anyone else that's going to supercharge our business. And that is where, with Dharma, the focus is primarily on talent and having talent-led trips. And the biggest growth in our business is actually those people who are on TikTok, who are on Instagram, that have a following. Light Watkins is one great example. He runs Begin Meditating. We operate all of his trips. And so when he promotes a trip to his audience of 30,000 people on his email list, they sell out fast. He's responsible for the customer acquisition cost. We run the trip. And there's a model there that you would never find that trip, the Begin Meditating trip with Light Watkins. You won't find that on an OTA. You won't even necessarily find that easily direct bookable, but you'll find someone like him promoting a trip. And I think that's where a lot of the audience are kind of missing the opportunity to work with influencers, to build their social presence, because that whole idea of creating short videos is like, that's the source of discovery and inspiration now. It's more videos than it is reading. So it's not reading about articles to go to Italy. It's a short little video that you saw, or better yet, you just watched White Lotus season 2, and now you've decided you have to go to Sicily, right? So that all of a sudden shapes behavior. It's like, I got to go see that Four Seasons hotel. I got to see the Godfather like locations. And so all of a sudden you're going to Sicily with a different mindset. But that's been prompted by, you know, another source that is video, that is content. And I think that's what people are gravitating towards. And I think that's a big opportunity to talk more about that going forward.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you know,
I don't know. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, go ahead, Janelle.
I don't know. I was going to say, I don't know if you can call Frodo an influencer, but I definitely went to New Zealand because of Lord of the Rings. So I think it's a similar. You
Right.
too?
Yeah, yep, I hear you. Yeah, it's interesting. I think that part of the challenge is that people don't know where to start. They they might be a smaller company and they're saying, well, how do I go about getting an influencer to to push my product? And it's not necessarily the case where you need, Frodo or some extremely well-known influencer. It could just be that you're finding even a local yogi that is willing to promote perhaps a product that you have, but I think it's where to begin. And I think one of the reasons, at least from my point of view, why a lot of the operators do gravitate towards the OTAs is because it's easy. They put up your product. It's not super complicated. You do a contract, you load your content, your imagery, and then they sell it. I think what you're talking about, Dan, is a little bit more. It's a real it's a stretch for some people. So how do you go about finding the influencers? How do you even think about that process?
Yeah, no, I'll give you a perfect example. So Spirit Stories, the brand that is like, there's 10 destinations to take wine and spirits enthusiasts, places like Napa or Champagne or Marseille or Ireland. And so there's a very defined audience that for that type of experience. But as you said, getting it on the OTAs is part of that. So, and selling direct, but where the success we've seen with talent. So this is the exact example that you're referring to, is that, so Pernod Ricard also produced a TV series on Netflix called Drink Masters. I don't know if a number of you have seen it, but it's actually a great series. They're doing another season, but it's basically cocktail masters, primarily from the USA and Canada, that compete. And ultimately there was one winner, and that her and 2 other influencers from that show are going to be running Spirited Stories trips. So they will actually be the leader of that trip. They'll be the ones that are making cocktails. There's Lady LP from New York, who's already Instagram famous and really well known on social media, especially since she won the show. And so, but now she's going to run a departure, and she'll be on that departure. And that's something that is like that. And she's going to be promoting it and filling up that departure with her audience. And then that's where you run one. So like the example of like what with Light, we ran 1 to Mexico City. It was sold out. We're running 3 more to Europe. What we find, we now have 100, what we call talent in the Dharma pipeline. So it started with 5 or 10, it got to 50, and now we have 100 of people like a Light Walk-ins or like an LP that will be promoting trips. So it's a complete, like, it's almost like we go back to a travel agent, going out there and promoting. They're essentially going out and filling out these itineraries. We're taking the bookings and we're running the operations experience, but they're the ones. And one last comment on this, because obviously in my past life, we were trying to get influencers onto trips, because you saw that trend for several years, right? A lot of companies, even my time at G Adventures, we did a deal with Discovery Channel. We're trying to get Andy Dehart on a trip, who's the shark expert. And sometimes those work and sometimes they don't. And that's where having someone who's a genuine talent influencer, they have a built-in audience. Andy Dehart didn't. And so it's like, if they've got a built-in audience and you put them, you give them the position to run and promote a trip, like what we're seeing is they fill, and then they want more departures. So
yeah,
that for us is our primary focus going into 2023, and building out this marketplace where you have all these different ways of passion-based travel, and then all of this talent that are running these types of trips.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Christian, so what do you think? Why do you think OTAs are what we talk about at Arival so much?
It's a bias. I think these OTAs got in there and I hate to say sponsored, but they got on the stage early and they became, and the word OTA is so simple versus reseller or distribution partner. So OTA's become a word for resellers. As you know, Laurie, we've been for years going to IPW, which is the main trade show for the US, and OTAs are a small part of that. And for most major attractions and tour companies, the OTAs aren't their biggest sellers. I have 120 reseller contracts, and for most of the last 20 years, the OTAs haven't been a major part of the top 10. And I think that too many tour operators don't know that. Too many people in the space, they just think it's all about buy a tour, then get your guide, not even Expedia anymore, and then maybe Klook, and they forget that there's another 50 out there. But just from what Dan was saying, the interesting part is on the social channels, no attribution, right? So you can go onto TikTok and see the great video of New Zealand, and then when you go to book it, you go back to Google, and you come through Google things to do, or you end up generally back on an OTA. So they still play a part right now because these new channels don't have attribution, and they won't probably ever. So we still need that middle layer of places to go to book it. And unfortunately, suppliers haven't got the websites in general that people want to do that.
I'm going to disagree that they won't ever. Like, I can't imagine TikTok, Instagram stories, YouTube shorts not having a clean call to action way, so that if I create a TikTok about traveling to Boulder, Colorado, there's not going to be the link to book. I mean, I think there already is in a number of cases. There's platforms already being built specifically for that.
No, not within TikTok. There's nothing you can't attribute within TikTok or Instagram.
They're being built for influencers. So there are platforms where influencers can come in, they can share their TikToks, Insta stories, whatever it is, and the platforms will then give them the ability to link up with an operator and earn a referral fee, commission, whatever you want to call it, from that operator. And I think that's still, in the early stages and will happen. So, I just have to disagree with you once in a while, Christian.
It's two different things, and it's fine, we can disagree. And I know these platforms, and they hope everyone is going to disappear from TikTok and all of a sudden create content on their platform. But
all right. Well, that could be another story. They're putting their TikToks on this platform to drive it to a CTA. But okay, let's move on.
Yeah, I mean, I think if WeChat can do it, right? We can figure it out over here. I mean, there's obviously a way of making it happen where you can, jump from a video right to a purchase path and buy. Somebody's already done that. So we should be able to see that happen in the West as well.
The difference is they won't allow it. The entire point of TikTok is that they don't let you off TikTok and Instagram. They won't let you link off their platform. Anyway, this is a good topic for a future.
All right, I'm taking notes for a future topic. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And we should probably do a time check, Bruce. I know we're limited on this.
Yeah, I mean, we're getting close to the end. I haven't gotten the warning from Zoom yet. But
very, very good.
Keep going. So, okay, keep it going.
Yeah, sounds good. So
hold on before we while we're on the edit
Christian.
piece. How long do we have, Bruce? Do you want to jump out and back in again so we don't stress about time?
No, let's keep going right now. It's okay.
Okay.
So Dan, as far as distribution is concerned, talked a little bit about what you're doing with influencers and social media and so forth. What are some of the other ways you're distributing your products other than online? Obviously, you've got websites. What you have partnerships that you work with as well, or what are some of the other opportunities you've got there?
No, it's a good question. I mean, obviously the key three are direct to consumer, so the website itself, trade, of course, that we've been talking about, OTAs, but also specialized trade. So moving beyond OTAs to those people who can successfully sell these type of niche travel experiences, which is an industry unto itself, with people that do sports travel or that would be interested in sending people to Napa, which is going to be like honeymoon trips. So there is, beyond the OTA, there's a bigger opportunity across trade to empower travel agents and trade partners. There's a huge network of home-based travel agents. I've been actually doing some of the calls, and I had a call with a travel agency in New York, a small operation, and who's very keen to sell private itineraries for spirited stories. And that's what he was. He was like Virgin Voyages, spirited stories. He saw a connection there and was very, so that it takes time and effort to let people book meetings with you, educate them, give them the information they need. Not a traditional OTA, but a huge market. And it was in my background too. So home-based travel agents, the trade community at large is a more significant than just OTAs. And then the one we've been talking about is talent. So we use the term talent, which is an influencer or a celebrity, that someone of significant social standing that would be able to really promote, and that I think is where we're starting to see a great deal of traction. But the last thing I think I just mentioned that is critical for all of us in this is content and the product delivery, the experience itself that people are going to have. So we just ran a trip to Oaxaca, a content trip with a couple of our team members to run through the experience. So people clearly need to, in terms of where we're investing our time and energy, it's creating content that will actually really showcase the travel experience that people are going to have. And so that benefits all of those channels, because if we do a great content trip and capture all those images and videos and then run a campaign for the first couple of weeks of January promoting Oaxaca as a destination, which is by far and away our best selling, most people are most interested in Oaxaca. I think tequila, like it's just, there's many factors that seems to be appealing to people, is that if we really promote that, then people will be looking for Oaxaca. They'll, when we were even doing the trip, we were told by one of our operations team down there, watch Somebody Feed Phil, the Oaxaca episode. And we did, and it was great. And for those who don't watch Somebody Feed Phil, but that Oaxaca episode is particularly good. But it gave us, watching that, all sorts of insights about the market and places we should go and foods we should explore that we should build into our trip experience. So I think just as an overarching theme, content development is so important, and then it'll benefit all those distribution partners, because they then all want access to those videos to help better sell those travel experiences.
That's great. I feel like you've given us like a whole bunch of information here that I think we could keep going on and on with this. A whole Dan schools us on best ways to sell. Janelle, I want to just jump back to you for a second on the whole women in travel tech thing, because that was a really great article, and it got a ton of views and lots of discussion around that. Anything that you want to say about that in terms of, you know, when you were putting that together, you know, your just what stood out? Or
Sure. Well, first of all, I'm not the one who put this article together. This was published just before I came onto the team. But one thing that I have done with this article is, since it was published, and originally, I think it was 26 leaders, women leaders in Experience's tech distribution. Since then, so many people have written to Arival, hey, this person needs to be on the list too. And so the one role I did get to play was adding all of these amazing people to the list after it was published, which is exciting to have that much engagement from people who are like, this is a great list. Here's someone else who needs to be on it. And it's not people promoting themselves, it's other people, you know, recommending other people to be on the list. And so I think that really speaks to not just the success of the article, but like that fact that there's so many people lifting up other women leaders out there. That's really exciting, and was it was really exciting to be able to engage with that.
Yeah, I mean, it went from 26 to 40 so far. Is Lori on that list?
No.
Well, I'm gonna nominate Lori for the list.
I don't know.
Because
well, travel tech, Bruce. I mean, well,
you're not a techie, but you better know as much about tech as I think you do, because you're working on some projects with
That's
Arival.
true.
So
that's true.
Yeah, I think Lori needs to be on the list. I'm going to nominate her, Janelle.
Okay.
But what was really interesting was how many women got nominated post the list, and that there's 40 now. I'm sure there's more out there. So anyone that's going to see this that thinks there's women that are missed from that article, we can link to that article from the post of this video podcast, whatever it ends up being, and that list will continue to grow. And anything we can do to support that list of, you know, women in tech, because we always hear that it's all a bunch of men in tech and they're on the stage all the time, and certainly at Arival we're trying to change that and make sure that it's all, you know, well positioned for everybody. And the list that is now is a really strong list of leaders in tech, not so much women in tech, but leaders in tech, right? So it's cool.
Is there anybody from Dharma on the list? Do you have, did we,
We should definitely,
any connection there?
yeah, we should
Dan,
definitely.
who are you nominating from Dharma to get on and jump on the list?
So, and Nisma is the co-founder. So it's a couple that started the business, and Nisma and Sharaf are both Moroccan. Nisma runs the whole talent side of the business. So many of the things I'm highlighting here is actually what they had been doing with getting influencers from the UK to go to Morocco and run these meditation and these wellness retreats. It was already a very successful part of their business. So Nisma for sure, and then Leah, our chief product officer. So we have female leadership and also a number of female team members throughout the organization. And so Leah is the one that's defined all of these product experiences. So I think that's great. I think it's important. And having been raised by someone that's a single mom, it also strikes to the core for me. So so I think that's great. So please, by all means, next time, have Nisma or Leah participate. And
Sounds good.
Dan, email that
Cool.
info to Janelle.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure. I think we're probably running out of time. Bruce, Christian, do you guys have anything you want to add to this before we jump over to Janelle and Dan? No? Anything, Janelle, you want to say to kind of wrap it up? I mean, it looks like we've got online distribution, OTAs, discovery and travel, women, niche tour operators, which Dan definitely has answered the call for that one. Anything else you want to say? What about 23? I mean, what do you think is going to end up on that list in 23?
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm thinking now as I'm looking and planning for the future and what kind of content we want to have on Arival and feature on Arival website. And so looking forward to what are going to be the issues in the coming year. Obviously, we can't know all of that yet, but I'm starting to think about some of those things. One of the things that's just top of mind right now is hiring. I know that a lot of tour companies are starting to hire earlier. Myself, as a former tour guide, I'm getting all of these, things way earlier than normal. And so I think, people are looking to do things more in advance in terms of how they run their business and plan farther in advance and be ready, because 2023, 2022 has been a big kind of resurgence in travel. And I think a lot of people that I know personally are planning to travel in 2023. And so I think there's this preparation for what's coming. And it'll be exciting to see how that plays out.
Awesome. And Dan, what about 23 as far as Dharma is concerned? What should we be expecting?
Well, I think the theme should be a lot for 23 and more for 24, because what we've been seeing is that people are like this concern about recession and like all realistic global factors that have to be taken into account. But it seems like so many of us in travel, we're running from one crisis to the next. And we're not, and we had such a difficult 2 years, all of us in this industry that we love and that we've decided to stay in. And what fascinates me the most is what human behavior changed during that time and what we're reverting back to. And I see it even with my own kids who were forced into Zoom, and we almost had another situation here in Ontario recently, and the kids looked at me and were like, I'm not going back to Zoom. I refuse to go back to Zoom, right? And so there were things where we thought that was just the way we were going to live our lives now. And the answer is, and travel not being a part of that was feeling like a piece of you was amputated for so many of us, right? What I would say is that counter to everything that we saw, where when we were struggling, the tech companies were riding incredible highs, they were hiring, they were going from strength to strength. Now all of a sudden it's the shoes on the other foot, I guess, is all of a sudden there's all this concern about recession and layoffs and what I mean. And the travel industry is booming, and it's like everyone's now worried about when it's going to stop. And it's like let it run, because realistically people may not be buying that sofa anymore or holding off on that car but people are overwhelmingly saying, I'm going to travel. I don't like the term revenge travel. I never have, but there's a massive wave of travel interest. And what I'm seeing right now from the people who are looking at 23 is that people are asking us for 24 dates. We have not, unlike through more established businesses that are selling 2 years out, we hadn't had that issue. And now we're having people say, we've just booked our big family trip for February, but we'd like to plan for February 24. And it's like, so what dates do you have? So this is very encouraging that I think the momentum we're going into with 23 will carry forward into 23 and, carry us into 24. So I think it's a great time
good.
for back and travel.
Yeah, no, that's a good way. That's a good note to end, right? So, yeah, I think we're this is a wrap for episode 4. Thanks so much for joining us, Dan and Janelle. It's been a really fun chat. So we'll look forward to 23, have you back next year to figure out whether or not we were right or wrong.
That's great.
All right.
All right.
We'll
Thank
see
you
you
all.
guys.
Okay,
Appreciate it.
thanks for
Bye.
having me.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.